Good morning, boys and girls. I want to talk to you about um, the book. I want to read you a chapter, and then I want to talk to you about some things that the author Anne Cameron does in this book to make it more memorable and make it more so that you either understand things or feel things, um, and um, and so we'll go from there. Okay. So we've talked about the stories Julian tells. Remember, Julian is the big brother, and he likes to make up stories. We've already read A Pudding is Like a Night on the Sea and Catalog Cats. I want to read today Our Garden, and and we'll go from there. Okay, Our Garden. We planted tomatoes, squash, onions, garlic, peas, pumpkins, and potatoes. Besides that, we planted two special things we saw in the catalog, which were genuine corn of the ancients. It grows 20 feet high. Harvest your corn with a ladder. Surprise your friends and neighbor. And make a house of flowers. Our beans grow 10 feet tall. Grow them around a string. Make a beautiful roof and walls out of their scarlet blossoms. Scarlet's another word for red. Huey was the one who wanted the house of flowers the most. I wanted the giant corn. My father said he wasn't sure he wanted either giant corn or a flower house. And if we wanted them, we would have to take care of them all summer by pulling weeds. We said we would. We planted everything one Saturday. We worked all day long, getting the ground smooth and even and laying the little seeds down in the rows. The whole time I felt the catalog cats were there, swirling their tails in the air. We finished just before the sun went down. My mother gave Huey and me baths. She said we were darker than the garden. She said we were dirty enough that she could plant she could grow plants on our hands and knees. When we were clean, we had supper with chocolate pie for dessert, and we went to bed. Huey went to sleep right away, but I didn't. I put my jacket on over my pajamas and went out the back door to the garden. In the dark, it looked as if the garden was sleeping. I lay down on the grass. It was cold and a little wet. I looked up. I thought all the catalog's cats were sitting on the roof of the garage staring at me. Over the top of the garage was a little moon with sharp horns. There were birds rustling in the dark branches of the trees. The seeds were dreaming, I thought. I put my mouth next to the ground and I spoke to the seeds very softly. Grow. And you corn seeds, grow high as the house. In just 1 week, the seeds did start to grow, and we watered them and weeded them. By the end of summer, we had vegetables from the garden every night, and the corn did grow as high as the house, although there wasn't very much of it, and it was almost too tough to eat. The best thing of all was Huey's house made of flowers. After a while, the flowers dropped their petals and turned into beans, and we ate the beans for supper. So what Huey made was probably the first house anyone ever played in and then ate. Catalog cats are strange, but a house you eat for dinner is stranger yet. So I want to talk about some of the things that were happening in this book, and it has to do with the language. Now, one of the things that you can do in order to make a reader pay attention is use time passing words. And time passing words, so in here, after 2 weeks, the plant started to grow. All summer was how long they had to pull the weeds, and they got finished before the sun went down. So all of these time passing words tell when something happens. And if you tell when something happens, then people can pay attention to your reading and they can know what's going on. Another is comparisons. Now, on the other stories that we read, pudding tastes like a raft of lemons and a night at sea. Oops, Mr. Garrett spelled the wrong sea. A night at sea, the ocean. So that was from the first story that we read. The story that we just read, it talked about how the beans were as high as the house, and you could make a wall out of them. You're comparing growing plants to a house that they got to eat. So that was fun. Next was repetition. And the repetition I heard in this story was they kept saying the word grow. Grow beans, grow corn. They started to grow. They were trying, the author is trying to get you to get the feeling that things were happening. They were growing and growing and growing. And it doesn't just happen overnight. It happened all summer long, and we could use the time words, and we see what they were doing because we compared them to how high the house was. Okay, and then alliteration. Alliteration we haven't talked about, but alliteration talks about the beginnings of words, and if they start with the same sound or the same letter and it's the same sound, that's an alliteration, and it's something that helps your brain remember it. It remembers it very, very quickly. So in this book, when they're talking about catalog cats, and then they keep coming back to those catalog cats, so you remember it. And just to show you that it doesn't only happen in books that are being read to second graders. It happens all over. Peter Parker, that has a p and oops and a p. Peter Parker. I'm not sure everybody knows where that came from, but it's used in things other than just books. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So, alliteration. So, paying attention to things like these and what the author does, it tells you some things that the author thinks are important, but it's also something that you can pay attention to so that when you are writing, when you're putting these words into something you're writing about, if you use time passing words, comparison, repetition, or alliteration, those are ways to give the reader clues as to what you think is important. All right, when you're reading today, I want you to pay attention and see if you see any of these tricks being used by or not tricks, but strategies that are being used to by the reader or by the authors that you're reading. All right, hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.